1 day away. We're now 1 day away from the return of the Duke men's basketball season. Countdown to craziness is going to be a movie. I can't wait to talk about it.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us on Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics, and we're talking a whole lot about Duke men's basketball this time of year as we're now 1 day away from countdown to craziness. I'm so excited to see all the events unfold tomorrow night inside Cameron Indoor, and who better to discuss all of this than our good pal Kevin Connelly, the site expert for Ball Durham. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That support means so much to us. And then follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So let's bring him on to today's show. It is our good pal, Kevin Connelly. And Kevin, I know you've got to be feeling pretty good, man. We finally made it. The month of October is here, and that means we get to see Duke basketball tomorrow.
Yeah, it's the month of October. They're playing 3 unofficial games, not including the scrimmage at Countdown to Craziness with the exhibition against Lincoln and then the exhibition against Arizona State. So, and then the season starts a couple of days after that Arizona State game. So, yeah, we made it. We made it through another long offseason of college basketball. Yes, we still have a month to go before the games actually count. But this month we get to see this Duke basketball team going up against two different teams that aren't themselves. So
yeah,
certainly Countdown's got to be a nice taste with that 16-minute scrimmage. But I feel like even the Saturday after that, and then at the end of the month, we get to see a real D1 team in Cameron led by Bobby Hurley. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've got a lot of talk to get to today, and the Duke basketball team over the last couple of days has had more and more content come out. We've got more perspective with the Blue Devils having their local ACC Media Day last Friday. They'll have ACC kind of the tip-off event with other ACC schools coming up next week. Well, we'll get to hear a little bit more about this Duke basketball team in particular. But, man, the fact that we get to see those guys inside Cameron Indoor. We talked a couple of weeks ago, you and I, on a mailbag episode about what was our favorite part about Countdown to Craziness, and so many people really excited to see these player introductions. But getting to the play itself, it's going to be pretty exciting to see how these teams are sort of divided, blue versus white, what they look like playing with one another, all of those sort of things, Kevin.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think you make a good point. It's going to be interesting to see how they divide the teams up. I know people, when they watch these clips and footage of practice, you try to pick out who's on what team, who's wearing blue, who's wearing white, to see how they could potentially divide it up for a Countdown to Craziness. I mean, I would expect like Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor to be on 2 separate teams. I would expect like Sion James and Mason Gillis to be on 2 separate teams. I mean, I could go down and down the roster, but if you have a guy that you think is at a similar position than another guy on the roster, you're probably going to be on 2 separate squads, like Connelly, Darren Harris. I think they could be on 2 separate teams as well. So yeah, I think it is going to be a lot of fun to watch these guys get out there and play.
So that's something for me, right? Like, how in the world are you going to divide up these teams? What are those matchups going to kind of look like in Countdown to Craziness? What's something for you? What else are you looking forward to in this, Kev?
There's a couple of things that I'm looking forward when this team finally gets on the court at Countdown to Craziness. I think first is Cooper Flagg, right? We finally, after all this talk and hype and chatter around Cooper Flagg, yes, it is only against his teammates. We finally get to see him on the court in Cameron Indoor Stadium wearing a Duke basketball jersey, playing in a game. I think that's going to be exciting for a lot of people out there. Another thing, and this is a little bit recent that I've been really excited to get actual live game footage, is how Darren Harris and Connelly are going to play. I mean, obviously everyone got excited. John Rothstein's tweets from a couple of weeks ago, plus the footage of Darren Harris going 8 for 8 from three-point range in a scrimmage. There's been a lot of hype about Con throughout the summer workouts and into the fall workouts and now into practice for how well he's played. And people are saying he's going to be in the starting lineup and he could potentially be a top 15 draft pick. So I'm really excited, kind of combine them, the two of them. I'm excited to see the both of them play. And then I'm really interested in the big man, in Kamen Malawak, and how he's going to show in this short time on the court, how he's going to be a rim protector, how he's going to affect the game in other ways. So I think those are the really three big things I'm looking forward to seeing in the short scrimmage on Friday night.
We could sum that up saying the debut of these freshmen,
Yeah,
right? Because you started with Cooper Flagg and then you went into the other guys as well.
Yeah, and that's not to say that I'm not excited to see a Caleb Foster or a Tyrese Proctor. And I don't want to sound I don't know even how to describe it, but like that you're not grateful or you're not glad that they're on the team, but like you know what they're going to bring, right? You know what they're going to bring going into their junior and sophomore seasons respectively. So I think the big thing I'm looking forward to is seeing these freshmen because they're new, they're exciting.
Yep.
Even throw in some of the transfers. Can Mason Gillis step out and hit a couple of threes? How is Malik Brown going to do defensively? Sion James, is he the freight train and the bowling ball coming down the lane like everyone says he is? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how these new pieces mesh. Although, yes, we still do have those two quality players in Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster returning for another season.
Yeah, this Duke team is going to be pretty special. So excited to see Countdown to Craziness tomorrow night. Could be a movie. Really excited to see the start of what this team's going to be able to do together. All right, we're going to step aside for our first time out here on today's show. More of Locked On Blue Devils when we return. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Tonight, a really fun NFC South Thursday night football game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. Go watch that. Check it all out and more over at FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Forward we go here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson. He's Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Durham. And Kevin, I got to talk more about Countdown to Craziness coming our way tomorrow with the Duke basketball team. We talked about the debut of these freshmen, how exciting it's going to be to see them in a Duke uniform playing inside Cameron Indoor Stadium. But at the end of last week, Coach Jon Scheyer was able to give us an update on one of the freshmen, and Patrick Ngongba II, about an injury that he's sustained. Let's talk about this, Kevin.
Yeah, he's kind of been snake bitten by the injury bug over these last 12 months. You remember Big Pat missed most of his senior season with a foot injury in high school, and he was able to come back and play the 3 games that Paul VI played in Chipotle Nationals, advancing to the national championship game before losing to Montverde. He played sparingly in the high school senior all-star game circuit, and then we did see him play for Team USA this summer. Now, he didn't play a whole lot of minutes, but he was on the court and playing, and he was participating in Duke's summer workout program, but was still experiencing a lot of pain in that foot. So Duke putting a boot on him, shutting him down, and he's out indefinitely right now until he's able to get on the court and play with and move without any pain. So it's going to be interesting to see when and if he comes back this season. But I guess the good news is it's not a new injury. It's still the same injury that he suffered about 12 to 11 months ago before his senior season at Paul VI in high school. So it's going to be a wait and see until when he can return and get back on the court for Duke.
Yeah, we saw in the Duke Blue Planet episode released last night that Patrick Ngongba was on the little scooter rolling around at practice. And anytime you've got those injuries, it's really tough, especially to start your college career, but still excited about what he can be as a player, although many believe maybe it wasn't going to be so much this season that he was kind of making an impact. So we'll see how he continues to progress. Again, Patrick Ngongba II out indefinitely for the Duke men's basketball team, who gets set for Countdown to Craziness. We've got the debut of so many of these players, trying to see how they all fit together. And now we go into the third year of Jon Scheyer as the Duke basketball head coach. Previously, this was, in the past couple of years, that was the big deal in itself, Kevin, right? Because it had always been Mike Krzyzewski who's leading the team out. We're really used now to this kind of being Jon Scheyer's program.
Yeah, the torch has certainly been passed, and it feels like it's Jon Scheyer's program right now, and that's good. Like I said, I think it's been a smooth transition. Really go back 4 years, kind of, in that final season under Mike Krzyzewski and Jon Scheyer already being the head coach in waiting. So the transition's been smooth, and Jon Scheyer's hit the ground running, and I think you certainly learn a lot over the first 2 seasons. So now I think he's ready to hit the ground running and really even make this program more of his own entering the season.
Excited to see this team take the floor, see what they're able to do together, and see how they can continue to take steps forward before the season gets going, right? The bigger test is going to be the following week when they've got an exhibition game against another team, the Arizona State charity game coming up at the end of the month. That's going to be pretty fun to get together because, again, going back to our initial point here, it's the Duke basketball team playing against one another inside Cameron Indoor for Countdown to Craziness. Going to be really fun to see them play other teams in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think fans are really getting excited about it now too. That there was always that anticipation and excitement, but now that it's here, I think it's even ratchet up a couple of notches.
I think the people who are most excited could be players we haven't talked as much about. We didn't want to forget them earlier when we were talking about things we were looking forward to, but the 2 returners for the Duke basketball team, Kevin and Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor. Both of these guys set to have really big seasons. Really good episode that they had together on the Brotherhood podcast, kind of talking about expectations for the upcoming season, really wanting to bring back that fear in opponents' eyes, feeling inspired from a Mike Krzyzewski talk in the locker room recently with these teams. But I tell you what, only 2 guys back off of last year's team. So different in a lot of ways. You wish you had a few more players just so that the continuity could be the same. But I think it's a really good 2 that Duke has coming back from last year's squad.
Yeah, and they're ready, as you kind of said, to make this team their own and to be the leaders of this team this season. And you've seen it in the offseason clips. You've seen it in the podcasts. So it's going to be exciting to see how they lead this team forward because, yes, there is a lot of hype around Cooper Flagg and his talent and his ability. But when you have these leaders out there like Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster, that's what's really going to carry you forward to have success throughout the season.
And it's going to be their play that kind of can set the tone right out of the gates. We've talked a lot about, John Rothstein's prediction with Foster coming off the bench in the most recent episode of Duke Blue Planet. It was pretty clear that Tyrese Proctor was running with what you would presume to be the 2s. So that kind of dispelled any takes there that, hey, in practice, we're just getting different groups of players together to kind of work with one another. These are going to be the 2 primary ball handlers. Let's get them as many reps in practice and get used, not get used because they've been doing it already in their college career, but, get into a rhythm again of running the show with this new team.
Yeah, and I said I would be stunned if they both weren't in the starting lineup, and yeah, it feels like that certainly will be the case that they'll be in the starting lineup. But I expect them to be on 2 different teams Friday night for Countdown to Craziness in the blue-white scrimmage. But yeah, that's kind of what practice is about, right? Yes, you're trying to implement certain things and foundational pieces both on offense and on defense, but the biggest thing is reps. And if you want both to be comfortable handling the ball, well, they're going to be on 2 separate teams in practice handling the ball for their respective squads. So, yeah, I didn't read much into it other than just that, like, if it came to fruition on, November 4th, the opener against Maine, and barring injury, if both were in the starting lineup, then I'd be very, very shocked.
All right, we're excited. Countdown to Craziness coming up tomorrow. Also, what we're excited about are some of the visitors set to be there. And do we possibly have a recruiting update on the Boozer twins? All of that and so much more coming up here today on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch today and every single day. For your second listen, make sure you go check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC teams like Duke stand within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Each and every week, we've got the Locked On ACC squad. I joined the team. We talk about these big college football games taking place each and every day. So make sure you go check out all of that out. All right, we're ready to bring them back in. It's our good pal, Kevin Connelly, who's here with us from Ball Durham. And Kevin, I do want to take a moment while we're here to let you promote the good work you've got going on over there at Ball Durham.
Yeah, Ball Durham, we got everything you could possibly want on Duke football, Duke basketball, ACC basketball, all Duke athletics. So you can come on over and give us a read over at balldurham.com. Follow us on social media at ball_Durham. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I'm excited to talk more about Countdown to Craziness in terms of the visitors that are set to be on campus. A couple of really high-profile players have decided they're going to spend their weekend, they're going to spend their Friday night inside Cameron Indoor. And again, Duke basketball does not have a commitment yet in 2025. I was reading a little bit earlier in the week, Kevin, and it really kind of put it in perspective. This is a new ACC. There are 18 teams now within the league. Only 3 of them, however, do not have a single commitment in 2025. That's Duke, Louisville, and Stanford. That kind of shows you like, yeah, this Duke team is a little delayed in terms of kind of getting out there and getting a commitment in the class of 2025.
No, I certainly agree with that, but I also think it's a new age of recruiting in this class of 2025. Things do seem very delayed. A lot of the top players are still on the board and are uncommitted. So would Duke certainly like to have a couple of commitments? Yes, but I'm still not hitting the panic button over that just now.
All right, so we've got recruits set to be there again for Countdown to Craziness on Friday. Who are the most notable names, Kevin, that you think are worth mentioning here?
Well, I think one that has been on Duke's radar for quite a while and just recently flipped. It was down to 4 schools, and that's Acaden Lewis. He was down to Duke, UNC, UConn, and Kentucky. He recently cut UNC from his list. He was supposed to go there this weekend, and now instead he's going to come over to Duke and watch Countdown to Craziness. So I think that's the most recent one, and that's probably the biggest that a lot of Duke fans saw over this past week. They're also going to have Shelton Henderson there, who's a top 25 player out of Texas. So another big recruiting target right there. And then the highest ranked prospect that's going to be there on Friday night is Nate Ament, out of Virginia, 5-star forward, top 5 player in the class, Virginia's top player, really can do it all, about 6'8", 6'9". And yeah, he's a big time recruiting prospect in this class. Some people have said perhaps if Duke were to land Cameron and Caden Boozer, specifically Cameron Boozer, being that power forward, does that really push Nate Ament to the side, or a player like Koa Pete or other players like that? And we'll certainly have to see, but I think it's certainly a good sign that Nate Ament is still coming on this visit to Duke for Countdown to Craziness.
Yeah, I can't wait to see all of it. All right, so let's go through those names once again. Acaden Lewis from the Washington, D.C. area, 6'2" point guard. Duke's had some pretty good success in the DMV area over the years. Several players on this year's roster still rep the DMV, and Acaden Lewis would be kind of the next in that long line of players that could be there. But a good solid start there. You need a lead guard. And yeah, the fact that he kind of cut UNC out, he's still going to go to the Triangle in the state of North Carolina, but spend his Friday night in Durham.
Yeah, and that's a good start. Obviously, the 2 big fish in the recruiting circuit are Cameron and Caden Boozer. And then I mentioned Koa Pete. He was supposed to be on an official visit to Duke last weekend, I believe it was, but then postponed the trip to it's the weekend of October 18th. So what's that, about a week and a half, 2 weeks away? So it'll be interesting to see if Koa Pete eventually does come to Duke for a visit.
All right, then we've got Shelton Henderson, as you said, 6'6" out of Bel Air, Texas. He is a player that Duke has had their eye on for a really long time. I can remember conversations with the recruiting experts who have made visits here on Locked On Blue Devils, talking about him forever. He plays AAU basketball with JL3 Elite. It's John Lucas III, Jay Lucas. We know the Lucas family and their success. So Jay Lucas has been the primary recruiter for this guy out of Texas. And it feels like Shelton Henderson's also pretty thrilled about the idea of possibly getting to play for Duke.
Yeah, it feels like Shelton Henderson is on track, at least in my perspective, to be a Blue Devil. Just as you mentioned, with that connection with the Lucases and Jay being on staff. So yeah, it feels like this could be a really good player to have on next year's roster.
And then, as you mentioned, Nate Ament, the other guy that Duke's going to be hosting, a top 5 player in the country. You said from Warrenton, Virginia, 6'9", 185, and maybe that could be kind of dependent on what happens with the Boozer twins. Boozer twins, we're just kind of waiting, Kevin. Although every report that comes out lately seems like we're getting closer and closer. Joe Tipton from On3 says it could be within the next week that we start to see some really big action for the Boozer twins making their decision. And again, they officially still have 3 schools in the running: the Duke Blue Devils, the Miami Hurricanes, and the Florida Gators.
Yeah, and over the past couple of weeks after they finished their last batch of unofficial visits, it did seem like this is down to a 2-horse race between Duke and Miami. And it's interesting. Do you stay home, closer to home, go to Miami, where you look at Miami and everything they have to offer in terms of NIL, in terms of great weather, in terms of good facilities? Do you do that? Or do you come to Duke and try to chase national championships like your father did back in 2001? So certainly a big decision for them. But yeah, as you said, people are saying the decision could come within the next week. But as we've heard over the past several weeks, it certainly feels like it's down to 2 schools, and that's Duke or Miami.
I can't wait to see this all play out. So hopeful that it ends in a Duke commitment. That will be one of the biggest kind of sighs of relief that we've had as of late in the Duke basketball recruiting world. Not only to get the Boozer twins, but to get some commitments in the class of 2025 and starting to build out the roster from there. Big weekend coming up. Big weekend coming up for this Duke basketball team here, Kevin, and also Duke athletics. This Duke football team, hey, first time in our lifetime, first time since 1994 that the Duke football team, is 5-0. And I know that if people go over to Ball Durham, they're going to be able to see plenty of coverage for basketball and football.
Yep, we have football coverage as well, and we talked about earlier in the season just trying to find a way to get to 6 wins and get to a bowl game, and now you're 5 weeks into the season and you're only 1 win away. So that certainly feels great. And I don't know. Let's see. Based on the result of the game this weekend on the road against Georgia Tech, which is not going to be easy, if you're able to win that and go to 2-0 in the ACC, I know you still have a lot of tough games on the schedule. Maybe you could start to dream a little bit bigger with this Duke football team.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. We're excited to see how it plays out this weekend. Kevin, the time is always greatly appreciated. We'll talk to you again next week, okay?
Thanks, JJ.
That's Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Ball Durham, joining us here on today's show. And that's going to bring us to a close once again here on the program. Coming up tomorrow, one final preview of Countdown to Craziness and a little more Duke football and Georgia Tech talk with our pal Connor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.